We're so honored to welcome on this 10th day of National Pear Month, the pride of Phoenix, Arizona, American Major League Baseball writer, journalist, and chairman,
B Money.
Bob Nightengale, not to be confused with Bobby Nightengale, beat reporter for the Cincinnati Reds. He's worked for the Sporting News, one of my favorite magazines growing up, MSNBC, the LA Times, and the Kansas City Star in his younger days as a beat writer, and is currently a baseball columnist for USA Today. In his younger days, he was a beat reporter covering the Kansas City Royals. And when Hal McRae, an African-American player and the best clubhouse leader Bob has ever seen, didn't get a single vote for the Hall of Fame, it killed him. He was born the same year as Jim Thome, Kenny Anderson, Rex Walters, George Lynch, Rod Smith, whose friend Demarius Thomas just passed away, unfortunately, and Andre Agassi. He's a proud Baseball Hall of Fame voter and considers it a privilege despite the vitriol that often accompanies he and his colleagues' choices, and why some have decided to relinquish their vote, like Buster Olney. He predictably loves seamheads.com, which Bryant Gumbel calls the most authoritative record of Negro League baseball statistics ever assembled, but unpredictably loves the Dusty Soul Group on LinkedIn, which is for lovers of classic soul, funk, R&B, and jazz. He was recently on the Dan Patrick Show breaking down the World Series, not with Dan, however, and has often joined the coach, John Cantera, here in San Diego. You can find him on Odyssey.com, at usatoday.com, of course, and on Twitter at bnightingale, where he has close to 300,000 followers. Bob, truly an honor to have you in the Sports Deli, where everyone deserves a seat at the table. Welcome.
Yeah, my pleasure, Michael. A lot of homework. Wow.
We always talk about whether or not we should do it in post-production. We always love the reactions. It's great. So glad you enjoyed it. So, when I was growing up, I was one of those kids that had Ernie Harwell and Paul Carey under my pillow and had to change the 9-volt battery the next morning because I forgot to, shut it off. And I would cry, if my Tigers didn't win. And so I don't know how it was for you because we're pretty similar in age, but what was your experience growing up, as a young baseball fan and player?
I loved all sports. We always lived on Air Force bases. My dad was a pilot in the Air Force. So we never lived in a city where there was a ball club. So every summer we'd go to New York where my grandparents lived. They'd take me to Yankee Stadium, that sort of thing.
Wow.
Used to see the Denver Bears, the AAA ball club.
Wow.
But was never around Major League Baseball much at all. Go see some Bronco games, that sort of thing. But yeah, pretty much loved all sports growing up. It wasn't just baseball. It was all of them.
Who was your favorite Yankee at old Yankee Stadium?
Yeah, I mean, probably like every kid, it was an aging Mickey Mantle,
Yeah.
yeah, that sort of thing. But yeah, just with the big stars, and of course, Reggie later on, that sort of thing. But yeah, there was never that one guy that I couldn't wait to see win a batting title or home run title. Just all the guys, and all the sports really.
So you played several sports in high school?
Yeah, wasn't very good at any of them, but yeah. more basketball and tennis, anything else, and baseball too. But yeah, was better at the other sports.
That's fascinating. And so tell everyone about your college experience.
Went to Arizona State University. We used to come down to the Tempe, Phoenix area as a kid for spring breaks, and just really enjoy the area. Obviously, in March, the weather is perfect. So fun place to go to school. Just great learning experience about people. It was a great mix of people, nationalities at Arizona State, and it was more just getting social life, outside, moving away from home for the first time. That was more fun than anything else.
I would imagine there. That's classic. And so, we pretty much know about Syracuse's communication program as being one of the best in the country. And how was your experience there as an undergrad?
It was just okay. I worked for the school newspaper for 2 semesters and kind of got bored with it, and maybe wanted to have too much fun, that sort of thing. Right. Nowadays it produces a lot of guys. I bet there's 4, 5, 6 beat writers now from Arizona State that have come out from the university in the last 5, 6 years, men and women.
Yeah.
So they're really cranking them out now. It's the program's a whole lot better now than it was when I went to school.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They were probably committed to the athletics back then, but they're definitely committed now especially with the basketball and the football coaches that they have there.
Yeah, again, professional, former NFL, former, college star there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm stunned this doesn't have better sports program, because it's a beautiful campus, great place to be. That they don't have championship caliber teams. In all those sports, really. Same as I always used to say about Colorado. They should have a championship caliber football team year. Just going to a university is gorgeous.
Gorgeous. So why the path of baseball and not basketball or something else as you started early on in your professional career?
There was a guy named Tracy Ringlesby. He was working for the Kansas City Star. And when I went there, I was doing all sports, basketball, the college sports. And he says, "Hey, why don't you join me on the baseball beat?" It was a two newspaper operation, morning and evening. And so he brought me in, we traveled and started from there. And then once started doing baseball, felt comfortable with it and enjoyed it, particularly the people. And I didn't, want to go to an indoor sport.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting. And so the sport has obviously changed, not just because we had $1 billion November last month before this recent work stoppage, but you talked about Arizona State, and so one of the people I had on the show was Lou Scott. Lou Scott went to Arizona State, and he was in the 1968 Olympics, and he was a part of the group that decided to protest at that Olympics, along with Americans Tommy Smith and John Carlos, as well as Australian Peter Norman. And so I want to ask you from this standpoint, because back when we were growing up, the league had nearly 20% African Americans, and we've seen obviously a large dip. And I'm okay with the direction that sports overall has gone in general, but there's been a disconnect the last 3 decades in Major League Baseball. And I know you've written about this and talked about this, but there's a lot of people that come on this show that like to get educated from a lot of different perspectives, especially from you and I, because we're white. And, we're supposed to be allies and talk about this kind of thing from our perspective and learn and evolve. And so what's your perspective on why there's been such a disconnect the last 3 decades?
Well, I think one thing that's hurting it now, or maybe the biggest thing, is NCAA. I mean, they give 90 scholarships to football,
Right.
A ton to the basketball players, and I think it's 11.5 for a baseball team, and it's rare to get a full scholarship.
A great point.
So if you're a kid that's good in all the sports and you got a chance to get a full ride in football or basketball, or a quarter scholarship in baseball, why would you choose baseball? Plus it's just more fun. I mean, football, you're playing in front of 60, 70,000 people, 15,000 for, the basketball games, baseball, friends and family, just not a big thing. You got to love that sport at a young age. And a lot of these kids that, go professional have all been in the highest training and everything else, and all these traveling programs at a young age where it gets expensive.
Yeah, it definitely gets expensive. And so what other things? I've talked to Jock Jones, I've talked to Shea Hillenbrand, who's been on the show. I've talked to Bruce Maxwell, who was on the show, first African-American to kneel and has paid the price since. And, there's other reasons. But what are some of the other things that you think, from either a grassroots perspective or academies or clinics, or reaching out to inner cities, similar to what the PGA Tour has done to bring baseball back? Or do you think it's never going to come back the way that it was? Sports Deli is sponsored by Moolah Kicks, the first ever female-only brand basketball shoe. You can find them online at moolahkicks.com or at dickssportinggoods.com. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll come back the way it was, but it's, it is getting embarrassing for baseball the way it is now. It's only about I think 6.8, 6.9% Black population. I think, educating kids at a young age what the sport's about. And, the more you get into baseball, the more you like it. But if you're a casual fan, you get bored, particularly the way the game is now. As someone said, it'd be, everything now is home run or strikeout. And if the NFL was that way, you'd have every quarterback, Tom Brady just throwing a Hail Mary every single play. And you're bored. I mean, people love the drives in NFL. People, you get those, rallies going in baseball, and we don't see it anymore. So I think you got to make it fun for the kids. If you're not playing baseball at a young age and understanding it, you're probably never going to like it. And so you're losing fans as well. I mean, it's the fan base now, I think, is 57 years old in baseball.
You're going to lose those at some point. I mean, I would speed the game up. I mean, I know there's been talk about that for a long time. I would super speed it up, and I would have the same things that tennis has. I don't know how you feel about it with regards to instant replay. It's quick, it's correct, it gets it spot on, whether it's on the black, or the top of the strike zone or the low end of the strike zone. And so how do you feel about that? Because I think it would be great. Like the anticipation in tennis, when you're like watching that video to see if it touched the line and if it touched the black, not seriously, like that. I mean, I would watch that.
Yeah. I mean, there seems so antiquated in baseball. I mean, you're right. Wow. Tennis is right there. And you watch the NFL, even the NBA, but you can watch the same replay 30 times in baseball and not sure whether the call was right or not. Seems way behind. That's why I don't know how they're going to do this automatic strike zone either. I think they wanted the automatic strike zone for the gamblers, knowing that, okay, doesn't matter who's behind the plate, that sort of thing. It'd take a lot of burden off the umpires, because if you miss 15, 20 calls, you're going to have people going nuts and thinking you're on the take and everything else.
Who's your favorite umpire of all time?
I'm not sure all time. The guy I enjoyed the most is Joe West. I mean, he's a polarizing guy, but he's fun to be around. I mean, when you're at away from the ballpark, having some drinks at the bar and telling stories, no better storyteller than Joe West.
That's fascinating. Who was the guy? He passed away, but the guy that would he would. I'm gonna stand up here for people that are watching on YouTube. I mean, he would get all the way down on every strike. Hey, you know what I'm talking about, right? Dutch Rennert.
yeah, I do. There's so many that you can emulate and stuff like that. I love the whole umpiring fraternity. Great guys. It's fun to be with them before a game for a few minutes, and afterwards, and have a few pops together. But yeah, great group. I feel bad for these guys, the way they're always getting ripped apart.
What's your favorite toe-to-toe umpire manager of all time? Billy Martin, or who is the best at it?
Well, you look at those clips. I wasn't around, but look at those clips with Earl Weaver. I think those are the best. Man. Yeah, I mean, I was around for Lupinella. Lupinellas were fabulous. Ooh. But Weaver took it to a different level.
But what makes you laugh? Like, is it when they kick the dirt on the home plate, or they're pointing, or their hat hits the umpire in the forehead? Like, what is it that makes you just be like, that's an all-time classic?
Well, especially when they're mic'd up, their verbal exchange. When you hear that, when you hear some of those Earl Weaver ones, just the way they're yelling at each other, those are classics. You got to have a microphone to make it really stand out from all the rest.
Oh man, that's classic. So you've been doing this a long time. Have you ever seen anything like what's going on right now?
As far as the lockout, you mean?
Yeah. And just the signings right before, and there's still so many people that haven't been signed.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's slow anyway, but to have I haven't seen the volume and the money signed those contracts as we saw right before the lockout. That was staggering. To see these guys, signing for over $300 million. And usually that stuff takes all winter long. It shows that if we could ever have some kind of deadline, how fun would it be? I mean, that's the way it is in the NBA, and baseball shows it can be done. People love that. So it's too bad they had the lockout, because then everything just came to a grinding halt.
Now, Scott Boras is continuing to, man, that guy. Talk about generational wealth. Good Lord. He
Yeah,
is,
I mean, I
he's
think
amazing.
his guy signed for almost $1 billion, right before the lockout. It's a 5% cut of that's pretty nice.
God, that's unreal. Uh, so let's talk about the commissioner a little bit. Look, we have to give people grace over the last year and a half plus. It's been unprecedented. Racial reckoning, pandemic, and some leagues have done a better job than others. And you talked about people being polarizing, and I know Ken Griffey Jr. is in the front offices there with the major leagues. Do you think that Major League Baseball has good leadership to help build the sport in the direction that it needs to go?
I think they're trying. I mean, I think the hiring of Griffey to do that helps. Some of the people involved, like a Michael Hill being there, helps out a lot. Right now, I think the perception is everything's money driven. Talk about putting patches on uniforms.
Yeah.
You see all the advertising now everywhere. I don't like the embracing of gambling. I think that's going to open up a Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Where I understand where it's a big thing. We see what's done for the NFL. I just think there's going to be too many people that are going to be tempted to be on the take. Whether clubhouse kids, that sort of thing, trainers, coaches, what have you, that say, I can make a lot of extra money by letting people know, hey, what the game plan is for the situation. Is this guy going to start? Is he going to open? Who has COVID? That sort of thing.
What's your feeling on Pete Rose?
I used to always think that he'd get in the Hall of Fame once he passed away. I still kind of feel that way, that I think baseball or the Hall of Fame is afraid of him, that he would embarrass a sport or embarrass a Hall of Fame by turning into a gambling thing, like making way too much money, doing things that they felt was immoral.
Do you think he's hurting himself with the podcast that he's doing?
Yeah, I just think the fact, he still does all the autograph stuff at Caesar's Palace and stuff in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I think that stuff has always hurt over the years, that they feel like you just can't trust them. The one thing about, people say, well, Pete never bet against his team. Well, the days he didn't bet on the Reds, he felt they were going to lose. So, I don't buy that. So yeah. I'm not sure he's going to get in, but he certainly won't get in while he's alive.
Interesting. So tell everyone your take on pre-2005 and post-2005 in terms of who you would vote for getting into the Hall of Fame. So, people that don't, read your column or have heard you before know about your feelings about this. Sports Deli is sponsored by Sport RX, the leader in sport prescription eyewear. Check them out online at sportrx.com. Don't forget to enter the code DELI10 at checkout for your special 10% discount. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
Yeah, I'm just writing about that now. So on the Hall of Fame ballot, there's 30 players, 8 have ties to PEDs. So if you were
performance enhancing drugs, for those of you who don't know what that is, yeah.
Yeah, steroids, HGH.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do is, if you were never suspended, never penalized, I'm fine with it. And there was no penalty to that. If you were driving on the highway, there's not going to be a cop around for 100 miles. You're not going 55, things like that. So I just think it was a wild, wild west. Everything went. And when people talk about, what Bonds did, what Clemens did, those things were encouraged. Managers, GMs wanted their guys to take PEDs in many cases. It's almost like, hey, if you weren't willing to take this, how devoted are you or committed are you to winning? So a guy like Bonds and Clemens, and go down if you want to go, Gary Sheffield, Sammy Sosa, all they did was help their teams win. They helped their own performance. And once there was testing, guys like Alex Rodriguez, he crushed the Yankees. He suspended an entire season. Manny Ramirez was suspended 3 times. Rules were in place. Rules weren't back in place then. So, so on that ballot, you'll see me check off, Bonds and Clemens once again with, Sosa and Sheffield and David Ortiz. I'll check off, but not an Alex Rodriguez or a Manny Ramirez.
That'll never change.
No. It was, the stuff was encouraged. Everybody liked, guys doing it. People knew what was going on.
Yeah,
I think it's still going on. Guys aren't getting caught. But if you got
Mhm.
caught, you got punished, and you actually hurt your team. Bonds or Clemens never hurt their team at all.
Hmm. Interesting. Did the murder of George Floyd change your view about how you do your job?
No, no, I was, wasn't glad it happened, obviously, but it woke people up. I was glad it finally woke up the, country. My kids are black, my wife is black. And so it was always, I've experienced it, seeing, then get pulled over, that sort of thing, walking to a restaurant, doing different things. So it's a, one
Wait
thing
a
I've,
second. Your kids have been pulled over and I mean obviously when people of color go into restaurants, they've been pulled over and treated differently? Sports Deli is sponsored by Breaking Tea. Check them out online at breakingtea.com. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
yeah, I mean, you
Wow.
teach your kids, hey, you put your, you put your hands on that steering wheel and make sure you don't do anything,
You
make
had that discussion with your kids?
Yeah, you had to.
Man, you don't
And,
hear about that coming from a white father of kids of color. That is amazing. So how have you and your wife navigated that space? I mean that that is, I mean I just find that just absolutely incredible to hear that perspective because you watch LeBron James crying, you watch Doc Rivers crying, and I mean I don't know how many people have talked to you about this. I haven't read anything about that, and your family's experiences. I appreciate being transparent, but that I got to stop you there and ask you about that because I think uh, that weighs heavily, in terms of what people could learn from your perspective.
yeah, I mean, back in the when I was covering the Dodgers as a beat writer in Vero Beach, Florida's very very racist, lot of segregated cities. But anyways, down in Vero Beach, we had to switch apartments twice one spring because they wouldn't let my kids swim in the pool, that sort of thing.
Jesus,
We're talking about the 90s, we're not talking about 1930s or 40s. Yeah, and
unbelievable.
that stuff still goes on. But at least I think what happened kind of opened up everybody's eyes, like, oh my God. I mean, what was happening before there was actually video cameras and that sort of thing, going back to the Rodney King incident. I mean, those things were happening, just nobody wanted to believe it. And now, if nobody's videotaping George Floyd incident, nobody would know any different in that instance either.
That is just mind blowing, to be quite honest with you. I just got to let that breathe for a second. Whew. Trying to get my thoughts together here. And how did your wife feel about everything? Is she have a different perspective because she's a woman of color? I mean, she's been marginalized more than any group of people, arguably, indigenous people and the Latino and Latina community and the Hispanic community. But how has she handled everything? Was it hard for her? Different?
Yeah, very hard. Yeah. I mean, days where wake up crying or just, days of bitterness. Even, walking around, an area and someone pulls over, what are you doing here? That sort of thing.
It's
Like, case
unbelievable.
in Georgia. So it still goes on. People don't want to believe it, but it still happens. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. You've never written about this?
No, no, just, try to keep the, family out of it,
No, I know, but don't you think? I mean, I know I've read some of the stuff that people say about you. I mean, I just it's just maybe a call to action. I just think you have a perspective that there are not a lot of people have, and people don't know about you. And I just think, man, it would resonate with people.
Yeah, I mean, just, we're talking about the black population in baseball, just when I write about that, once, twice a year, pretty always do it on Jackie Robinson Day.
Mhm.
The emails are, that the messages that people get a hold of what my cell phone is are unbelievable. I mean, it's as rampant now as it's been ever since I covered baseball.
When you talk about this stuff, for me, anyways, this is exactly why we pivoted with this podcast and why it's so important that we share with people because so oftentimes we hear about the fact that people are pulling the race card or black people have it better than they ever used to and why are we still talking about this and move on and you know this is why we have to have conversations publicly about this from the white perspective, from your perspective, And it's also a call to action for everybody out there to have conversations with people that don't look like you, with people in your own families, to talk about these things that are still happening. Bob Nightengale sharing with all of us testimonial about his own family that they had to move because their kids weren't allowed to swim in the pool because of the color of their skin in the 90s. And it's just it's disgusting, but it's not surprising. And I hope everybody that's listening out there understands that this kind of thing still happens, and we all need to do a better job of understanding it and being anti-racist so that we can bridge the gaps with these unfortunate narratives that still exist in this country. I'm so sorry that happened to you and your family. And when people say the things that they say when you criticize draft picks and things of that nature, they they don't know you. You know, clearly I had no idea. And so I don't know. I just feels like that vibration would resonate with people besides baseball, and I don't know, just something to think about. You know, it's your life, it's your family, and obviously, you know, you want to protect them, but I'd read a book about that, maybe more than I'd read a book about baseball, to be quite honest with you, and your family's experiences.
Yeah, I mean, just people, people of color have gone through this, particularly, the black population. But I think, I think people thought that, hey, when President Obama was elected, everything's fine. It's not fine. Nothing's gone away. Open up again, open back up again during the Trump administration. And then, people see it. I mean, it's in many ways, I remember talking to Hank Aaron about this. It's, nowadays, at least it's more, in the open, or before everything was kind of behind closed doors where people knew it, but was never exposed. Now it's exposed for everybody to see.
Well, I hope you use your platform to expose more things, not only from your own personal perspective, but I think it would lend instant credibility. And yeah, I just think it would be an amazing read.
No, thanks. Yeah, maybe one day I will, for sure.
I'm not the person to write the forward for it, but I would read it. So let's get to the this or that, and I'll leave the floor to you to talk about anything else that you want to promote or talk about. You feel it's important for the world to see and hear. Sports Deli is sponsored by PSK Collective. Their women's clothing line promotes inclusivity, empowerment, and equality. Check them out online at pskcollective.com, tjmax.com, walmart.com, and lids.com. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli. All right, so in the USA Today newspaper you write for, the colors are green for money. For those of you that don't know, you're probably living under a rock at this point. Teal for travel, blue for news, purple for life, orange for tech, and red for sports. If you had your choice, what color would be sports?
I don't know. I'll go black and white. I'll go back old tradition.
Yeah, there you go. No
Yeah.
pun. All right. Best mascot is in which city?
I gotta go the Philly Fanatic. I mean, that guy's that person's still famous, funny. I'm gonna sing the press box, and keep more attention to Philly Fanatic. But yeah, very clever guy, or woman, whoever it is, but very clever.
Should the San Diego Chicken be brought back?
Tell you what, I met him for the first time
Wow.
at Joe West's retirement thing. I was in
Wow.
Chicago. So Taylor Roos is facing the Cardinals for the first time, and it was actually the record game for Joe West. San Diego Chicken was there, and he actually got in the costume, and I was there for the Joe West game. Ted, I forget how you pronounce the last name, but yeah, delightful guy.
That is hilarious. What a great story. Thoughts about realignment?
Baseball wants to do it. They got to get to 32 teams. I mean, having the 15-15 so awkward. So they will. The two places they want to go to are number one is Nashville, and two is Montreal. That's their dream as far as adding two more teams.
Man, I used to love watching Montreal. I had that hard helmet when I was a kid. You used to collect those at the games. They used to give them out for free, right? And Montreal's and the Blue Jays were like two of my favorites, besides my Tigers, of course. who can't get their life together, along with the Pistons, Lions, and Red Wings. Okay, so should chewing tobacco be outlawed in Major League Baseball?
I don't think so. I mean, I like the way it is now, where you're not supposed to expose it for the kids, that
Mhm.
sort of thing. You're not supposed to be smoking cigarettes on the bench for the TV cameras to see. But I don't think you can just outlaw it. I really don't. Outlawing it for the rest of society. Why do it for a sport?
I don't know, after Tony Gwynn and just others, and I'm sure you've heard that before, but it's just, I just wish they would, just to set an example. Dave Stewart was on our show and loves Tony La Russa, obviously. What are your thoughts about him? He surprised you this year?
Tony, no, I thought he would do a great job. I was surprised how much negativity there was toward him. Wasn't when he retired, he wasn't just sitting on his couch eating potato chips. He just retired from managing. He was still in front offices and won a World Series ring with the Red Sox, and he was still sharp and doing everything else. So no, I thought it was very cool to see, La Russa in the playoffs, Dusty Baker in the playoffs. Like to see Buck Showalter with the Mets, and Brian Snickers in the 60s. These guys in the 60s can still manage.
Oh, absolutely.
In these cases, 70s with the Dusty and Tony.
Yeah, I'd like you to see more small ball and rallies like we used to in the old days. Sparky Anderson or Tommy Lasorda? The Sports Deli is sponsored by City Lokes. You can get your own personalized hats and much, much more. Check them out at citylokes.com. And don't forget to enter the code TheSportsDeli at checkout for your special 10% discount. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
Oh, I covered Tommy, so bias there. Enjoy being around Tommy. I thought Sparky, had the big red machine, the Tigers. There's just something magical about Sparky. I think, Tommy was more colorful and had all the celebrities around him, and Sparky was just pure baseball. So I like Sparky.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kirk Gibson's home run for the Dodgers in Game 1 of the '88 World Series, Bucky Dent's tie-breaking home run in 1978, or Vin Scully's call of Hank Aaron's 715th home run, breaking Babe Ruth's record.
I'm going Vin Scully's call. I thought it was unbelievable. I'm having the greatest call of all time. Yeah, tremendous.
Just what he said after pausing was just amazing about what a black man was doing for not only America but for the world.
Yeah, in deep
so
South.
powerful in the deep South. Just amazing. If you could choose one jersey besides Jackie Robinson as your favorite, what would it be?
Any sport?
Yep.
I might go with some of those old ABA jerseys.
Wow. Dr. J?
Yeah, Dr. J. Dr. J, the New Jersey Nets, New York Nets. Yeah, that was unbelievable.
That's classic. Wow, I didn't expect that answer. So you'd be writing about basketball if you didn't write about baseball?
Yeah, I don't follow NBA nearly like I used to, but I did. Love the ABA. I love the like I said, Dr. J and George Gervin, those guys. The flamboyant guys were fun. Yeah.
They were. You like Steph Curry?
I do. I never met him, but seems like he was those ultimate role models too, on and off the court.
Absolutely. Had a great interview with Obama too. A League of Their Own, Moneyball, Bull Durham, or Field of Dreams?
I would go. I think Bull Durham.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah.
All in the Family or the Jeffersons?
I watched them both. I watched yeah. I mean, I tell you what, All in the Family woke up people to, the racism in the country. They showed it out there in a amusing type of way where, Jefferson's was fun, talk about racism too.
Sure.
But I think All in the Family was more important to society than people think.
I agree. I don't know if they can make a show like that anymore, man. Archie Bunker was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
If you were in your car jamming, what song would you be singing?
Well, I love Earth, Wind, and Fire was always my favorite group, still is, and
Awesome.
There was always a debate. Okay, go Devotion or Reasons. I'll go Devotion. A lot of people go Reasons, but I'll go Devotion.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Best Hall of Fame experience?
Oh man, tell you what, it's always my favorite weekend of the year. Love going to the Hall of Fame. I remember sitting there a couple of years ago in the fireplace outside in the hotel, just listening to Rainey Johnson and Greg Maddox talk about pitching and talking about baseball for an hour. Sitting there in the hotel lobby area with Wade Boggs as he's drinking his Bud Lights and listening to his stories. But yeah, it's such a fun weekend. Remember one time introduced myself to Bob Gibson. He's on the couch by himself.
Wow.
And he wasn't talking to anybody. And I asked him why. He goes, I really didn't know these guys playing, right? Because at the All-Star games, I didn't want to know position players. They were the enemy. So fellow pitchers I would talk to, but nobody else. It was just interesting how it was such a hatred or enemy back then with those guys, where now it's so much fraternization.
Which player surprised you the most over the course of their career that you didn't think they were going to be the player they were? They ended up being, more than you ever thought they would be.
It's got to be Bo Jackson, covered Bo,
wow.
With Kansas City. And then when they drafted him, I said, oh, it's like a sideshow. What is this? And for him to have so little experience, join the Royals, and easily the best athlete I've ever been around. But
wow.
He would he would have been a perennial all-star. And he had told me he was going to quit football after that season. Just the Nike money made it impossible not to do both sports. His true love was baseball, but Nike wasn't paying for baseball; they're paying for football. And just a wonderful guy, and used to sit around with him all the time, and on and off the clubhouse. And remember him telling me it was always Bo knows, Bo's this, and he could never use the word I without stuttering. So that's why he never said I. He had one of the worst stuttering problems you ever heard. He kept going to speech classes and everything else. So it's amazing how things have worked out for him, but a lot of work with the speech.
Wow, that's fascinating. Pedro or Greg Maddux?
Pedro was so dominant, and for a while there, he was a kind of a headhunter too. He was more fun to watch, with the strikeouts and everything else. And I think just the more body of work you appreciate Maddux, getting this done in 70 pitches, 80 pitches, just how his mind worked. Even Max today will joke, if I was coming out in the draft, I never would get drafted. Nobody would draft a guy throwing 88 miles an hour.
Yeah.
He's the only pitcher I've ever seen in the dugout before batting practice or, during batting practice. He'll watch the opposing team in his shorts just to see what they're doing in batting practice and use that for the game.
Wow. So interesting. Boy, he could paint the black like no other. Unreal. I Love Lucy, Three Stooges, or Abbott and Costello?
I Love Lucy. I watched a lot of those ones, particularly the early ones. I Love Lucy easily.
Easily. Dave Letterman or Johnny Carson?
It seemed like Letterman always came on so late. I'm not sure I saw it as much Letterman. Where Carson, it seemed like, you'd always get the more famous type people, it seemed at the time. And it would seem like more Johnny Carson for whatever reason. And, some of those old clips now, I still laugh at.
Totally. Favorite app on your phone besides USA Today and Major League Baseball?
I have a lot of the newspaper apps on there. I think the New York Post app is great. Kind of gives you a taste of Hollywood.
Right.
Like a little TMZ mixed in with your news. I like that. I tell you what, though, as far as the Twitter app, the 70 Sports, Super 70 Sports, I think it's the greatest Twitter account of all time. I think it's unbelievable how funny it is.
Oh, wow. I got to check that out. That's interesting. And you have a lot of Twitter followers.
Sports. Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. Scherzer or Verlander?
I'll go Scherzer. He seemed like more of an everyday type guy, like in the Detroit Tigers clubhouse and different clubhouses. He's the guy that does the football pools, basketball pools, that sort of thing. You could see him a little bit like Maddux as an everyday type player.
Yeah.
Or Verlander just strictly a pitcher.
Can you believe the Tigers had 3 Cy Young Award winners on their club at one point and lost them all?
Yeah, what was it? One staff, I think everybody won a Cy Young. They've had I want to say 8 or 9 Cy Young winners among that 2014 staff.
That's unbelievable.
When I've talked to those guys,
couldn't find a closer. God dang it.
Yeah. Scherzer and those guys, and still Dave Dombrowski says he still hasn't gone over it. The year they were up 1-0 over Boston in the division series, and we're on their way to 2-0, and then Ortiz hits a grand slam.
Oh,
They should have won the World Series. That was a phenomenal team.
unbelievable team. Killer. Bill Murray or Harry Carey singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game"?
Yeah, I'll go Bill Murray. Man, he loves his baseball too.
He owns a minor league club, doesn't he?
Yeah, St. Paul Saints.
Yeah.
And a funny guy. You'd always see him over at the Murphy's bleachers, when he was in town, that sort of thing. But man, he loves his baseball.
That's classic. Ken Griffey Jr. or Ricky Henderson?
Ken Griffey Jr. just because I know him a lot better than Ricky Henderson. I mean, Junior was great. And even at a young age, he was talking about these guys using steroids. When a guy's going to start writing about it, it's almost like now you just can't expose guys about knowing stuff. But he was just a fun guy, and still talk to him, once every 6 weeks or so. Yeah, wonderful guy.
All right, a couple more. Tougher name to spell: Tim Kirchin or Mark Teixeira?
Yeah. I think Teixeira. I was always get confused where to put the I and that kind of stuff. Yeah, Teixeira. I always have to still look that up, and known Tim forever. But yeah, I'll go Teixeira.
Man, congrats to Tim.
Loves the game of baseball. Loves it.
Yeah, just received that award. Yeah, go ahead.
Funny story with Tim. So he's on his very, very first road trip ever. He's in New York, and he sends out his laundry, and not knowing how expensive it is in New York, he gets it back, and the guy says $330, and so Tim gives him a $5 bill. $330. Tim had no idea.
Yeah, he just won the Baseball Writers Association of America Career Excellence Award. Oh man, that is phenomenal. Mitch Albom, Peter Gammons, Bob Ryan, Tim, or Buster Olney?
I tell you what, Mitch Albom is, outside Jim Murray, might be the most gifted writer I've seen, for a newspaper writer. Fabulous. Just different things. Gammons, he was the notes guy. I mean, he was
Right.
a guru that everybody followed. Everybody wanted to know how he got it done. All this stuff. When guys go transition to TV, he invented this notes network. So, I'll put, Gammons started it all.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I'll go Peter Gammons for just the notes collecting and everything else.
Love listening to him. Love listening to all those guys. But man, he was definitely great. Okay, so last two. What non-5 baseball players would be at your dinner table of all time?
Non-5. So I'd go, Muhammad Ali for sure. Yeah, he'd probably be number one. Jim Brown, love to have him at the table. I mentioned Dr. J before. I'd like to see Julia serving there.
That would be amazing.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he's such a fascinating man. And I had a long talk about the anniversary of Rodney King with Jerry West. I'll put Jerry West at that table. He was such a sharp guy, man. He was I was blown away. Just his memory of, not just his memory, but just his perspective on things. So that's I know it's more basketball than anything else, except
that's interesting. Yeah. Who would be the first woman at your table, non-baseball player?
Ooh.
Besides your wife, of course.
You have to think about that one. Yeah, I've always been so impassioned with Michelle Obama. I know it's nothing going back in history. I mean, Jackie Kennedy back in the day would have been interesting. But yeah, I'll go Michelle Obama.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a popular answer. I said Robin Roberts. I think that she would be an amazing person to have the perspective that she has. Okay, so which 5 baseball players would be at your dinner table? Last question.
Yeah, certainly Jackie Robinson. You're talking about dead or alive, correct?
Yeah, dead or alive.
Yeah, Jackie Robinson, Babe Ruth.
Wow.
Willie Mays. Tony Gwynn is one of my favorite people of all time. I got to have Tony Gwynn at that table. If you have Gwynn at that table, you better have Ted Williams.
That's right.
Those guys were so close. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was the best All-Star game. I don't care what happened in the All-Star game, but when he helped out Ted Williams as well,
Right.
that first pitch, that was magical.
Magical.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, anything else before we let you go that you wanted to share with everybody or talk about? We've been in 28 countries. We've had a lot of baseball, basketball, football guys on. We bet on women heavily. And, we're an anti-racist equality podcast, and everyone deserves a seat at the table. And I always love to find out things that I didn't know about before. And you are multi-layered in a way that I had no idea. And mad props to you for your longevity and who you are as a man and as a husband and as a father, and continued success. And we'll leave the floor to you.
Yeah, in today's day with media, I just wish everything wasn't so negative. Every single thing. I mean, you can write the most glowing feature about whoever, and there's one negative statement in there. That's all anybody cares about. So people don't read anymore. People don't read, the long form stories, but they'll read a little snippet of a player ripping their player, or a player ripping a coach, that sort of thing. So I wish people would just take a deep breath. It's just sports. Let's have fun with it. But now just everybody's mad at the world. Every little thing. I remember talking to David Price a couple of years ago. Now with the Dodgers, Price used to be very active on social media. He got off it, and as Price would say, I could tweet out "God is good," and somebody would tweet right back, "No, he's a jerk," that sort of thing, and just he can't even say anything positive. So I wish things were a lot more positive than they are today. I've never seen the negativity as bad as it is.
Well, you stay true to your inner voice and your compass. And like I said before, I would love to read some human interest things similar to what the Players Tribune offers. Safe spaces for people to share their stories. And I think you would offer, as a moderator or just, your own perspective, some information that would surprise a lot of people and I think would help a lot of conversations move forward. So again, much love and respect to you, continued success, and thanks again for coming to the Sports Deli. Truly appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much, Michael.
All right. Thanks, Bob. We'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, that was Bob Nightengale, everybody. Wow, what a fascinating conversation. If you have any questions, you can always send me an email to thesportsdeli@gmail.com. Remember, Black Lives Matter. Stop the bullying. Stop the Asian hate. And contact your local and state politicians for any injustices that you feel are going on, any individual or groups of people that you feel are being marginalized, and realize that your voice matters and make your voice heard. Wow, that was something that I did not expect. And every time I do prep work for these guests, you just can't possibly know everything about what they've been through, what their upbringing is, who they're married to. I didn't read one thing about Bob and his family. And he probably has intentionally wanted it to be that way. But I hope you enjoyed sharing space with us. And if you have any questions or comments, would always love to hear from you, either in that email that I shared with you or in a DM on Instagram @MikeHootner. And so until next time, for Dr. J and Coach K, I'm Hootie Hoot. This has been a production of Hootie Hoot Productions. Remember, it takes a village. Until next time, much love.